Good afternoon, everyone. I received a number of questions lately with regards to my systems and practices and how I utilize velocity within my business. I thought I would record a quick little video to show one of the tips and tricks that I utilize on a daily basis to hopefully either show you something new that you didn't know was possible, or ultimately help walk you through how to set it up if you did know it was possible and just haven't put it into place. So before I get into showing you conditions and documents, which I want to talk about, a little bit about how I operate things. With my client database, whether it's an existing client that I've worked with before, or whether it's a new client that I'm working with for the first time, I always start things off with a phone call. That intro phone call is usually about 15 to 20 minutes in length, and it allows me the opportunity to understand the client's needs. It allows me the opportunity to answer any questions or concerns that they may have. And it also allows me to intake an application as part of that phone call. Usually within that 15 to 20 minute window, I can answer the questions and get a complete application to get the ball rolling with underwriting a file for them. Now, within Velocity, I use the conditions and documents section as the home for all documentation. I always collect as much documentation up front at the time of application as possible. And I will certainly not underwrite a file for a pre-approval or a live file without supporting documentation to verify what the client's telling me. So for the purposes of this video, I've created a sample application, and we're going to assume that it picks up following that introductory phone call with the clients. Now, obviously, this application is not going to be as detailed and in-depth as one would be for a real client situation, just because I don't need to pre-fill every detail for the purposes of this video. But just know that when you see some of the gaps and blanks, normally on a real file, those would be filled in. So I've created an application for Harry Doe and his wife, Helen Doe. Harry is self-employed. He's been in the industry for a few years now, and he owns his own company. His wife, Helen, she works for Robel, which is the Rogers Bell amalgamation. She's been employed for a number of years in a salaried position. For the purposes of this application, they own a property currently that they're going to reside in. They're not selling this property. And on the theoretical phone call, they didn't know their mortgage details offhand. Now they're looking to purchase a second home for family to live in. So we're going to be structuring an owner-occupied purchase. I haven't pre-filled all of the details here, again, just because this is a sample for video purposes, but I have structured the application as a purchase approval. Okay, now with Velocity, as I mentioned, I use conditions and documents as the home for everything. So on a pre-approval or underwriting a file that isn't live yet, there are certain documents I request upfront to support the details of the application. Alternately, on a live file where an approval's in place, I'm going to list every condition that's on the commitment that I would need to satisfy as part of the mortgage. We can certainly go to the add upload conditions section and start clicking drop downs for what's necessary. Letter of employment and pay stub for Helen, for example, T1s for Harry, for example. However, working with multiple clients a day or a week, that can get pretty labor intensive, adding 10 or 15 conditions up front to every application. What I've done and what I'm going to show you how to do is use smart conditions, which is in the settings of Velocity, as a way to speed up and simplify my document request and document outline position. So within this conditions and document box, you'll see this blue box here that says, it looks like not all of your default conditions have been applied to this deal. Click on this bar to update the condition list. Let's see what happens. As you can see in this application, Velocity has now pre-filled a number of conditions based on settings that I've set up applicable specifically to this file. So you can see for Helen, we're conditioned for a pay stub, letter of employment. Because she's salaried, there's a T4 condition here. Now, personally, I always request T4s for the past 2 years from every individual, whether they've been at the job 2 years or not, just as a way to look at the average. And also most lenders, if you've been employed for less than 2 years in your current position, will want to see proof of previous employment. For Harry, as we discussed before, with him being self-employed, Smart Conditions is populated for T1 generals, notice of assessments, and either his business license or his articles of incorporation. Because I've structured this as a approval purchase application, We have a smart condition for a agreement of purchase and sale for the purchase. And because I've indicated that their existing home is not being sold, we're conditioning for a property tax bill and a mortgage statement. The client letter of engagement, I get signed up front with every application, as that provides consent to pull credit, but I send that out separately for e-signatures. And also with every file, every individual that I work with, I collect valid photo ID as part of my, my vetting and due diligence process. So the nice thing here is that following the phone call with the clients, I can now send out these conditions as documentation requests to the individuals. So if I were to click on the conditions that I want to send out that, I'll request the property tax bill and mortgage statement for their existing, and I'm going to get valid ID. I can then go up to this blue box here, the actions button, click the drop down, and from that under client portal, I can collect email, request documents for conditions. Clicking that will open a new email box, which will allow me to send an email to the clients. I would pre-fill, could type their names to enter their email addresses. Now I haven't entered email addresses for these clients, so I'm not able to pre-fill it here. I can change the subject. And you'll see here that the conditions that I've clicked on are outlined here to be requested. We have pay stub, letter of employment, T4s, etc. You'll see on the right-hand side here under details, I have some verbiage or some wording to outline specifically what I'm looking for the clients. And I'll get into in a little bit where in the settings you can enter that in order to pre-fill that information. Usually with my document request, I have a, stock template that I put with it, requesting the documentation, outlining the secure link, welcome them to request or contact me with any questions or concerns. I input that. And when this goes out to the clients, they'll see a breakdown of these conditions being requested, and they'll also see this upload documents button at the bottom of the email. Now, if the client clicks this upload documents, it opens the portal and allows them to upload their conditions or the documentation for the conditions right into an encrypted portal. It can accept JPEGs, it can accept pictures they take on their phone, obviously PDFs. It will encrypt them and upload them directly into the Velocity application. From there, I get emailed to be notified when the clients have uploaded documents. And if the client has not been able to upload all of the documentation at the same time, they can re-access this link to upload more documents at a later point in time. Now, it's important to remember that this documents just go into the Velocity system. They don't auto-send to any lender or are not accessible by anyone other than you and or your assistant if you have an assistant working with you. So once I've sent that out, the client will get notified of this email with the documentation. I also send out, as I say, that e-signature link for the client letter of engagement, and I sit back and wait. Once the client's uploaded the documentation, I get that email notification, and then I can go in and start working on the file to work out options specific to the client. Personally, once I've input the application after the phone call, I don't touch the file further, whether it's a purchase or a pre-approval, until the client has provided the documentation requested so that I can work with verified numbers and answers. So normally we would send that and it would go out. Let me show you in the settings how to set this up so that you can have smart conditions pre-populate. We can go to the gear widget here at the top right, click the drop down for settings, and that will take you to the settings screen. I have it open in another tab for convenience. And we're going to scroll down to the conditions and documents section in the settings. The custom conditions section allows you to create conditions that are available from the drop down. So if you have a condition that's not showing in the add upload conditions section, or if you have one that you don't like the wording of and want to change it, you can create that custom condition to be available in the drop down. Moving down, and the pre-population section is under smart conditions. So these smart conditions are conditions that I've set up based on different specifications and criteria, and that's what we saw auto-populate into the conditions and documents section. So for example, I've created a smart condition for income pay stub for the borrower, and I've also input the customer external notes as requesting their most recent pay stub at the time of this request. That's what you saw in that portal link with the additional documentation information specific to what I'm looking for. Likewise for letter of employment, etc. So if we look at the settings when I've set it up, let's say for letter of employment here, we can see that under borrower filters, I've set it up to be applicable to all borrowers, okay? If I've listed their income as salary, hourly, or hourly plus commissions. I haven't set any filters for subject property or existing property because this income condition is specific to the borrower, not the property. But under defaults, notes, and descriptions, I've put some text related to exactly what I'm looking for under the customer external notes. If you put the information under the agent internal notes section, it will be visible to you, but it won't populate and show to the client. So I use this section, and my assistant uses this section to make notes about the documentation we've received, either maybe a note that the income is not on track, or that they're over their base salary, or that it looks like there's a commission component, whatever the situation is there. But this customer external notes is what the client's going to see when you send out that portal request. Likewise, I've set up an income condition for T1 generals, and this relates back to what I talked about earlier with indicating him as self-employed correctly. I've set up this to apply to all borrowers if their income type is listed as self-employed or commissioned, so that they're triggered, or I'm triggered to ask for T1 generals to support their self-employed income. Again, haven't applied any subject property or existing property filters, but I do have notes about exactly what I'm requesting of them to clarify. As a point of reference, alternatively, I've set up mortgage statements to be triggered for existing properties. So if the client has an existing property that I've entered into the application, a condition for a mortgage statement will pop up. If they have more than one existing property, maybe an owner occupied and a rental, for example, it would create mortgage statement requests for each property that they've had. The nice thing about smart conditions is you can create as many different conditions as you want, applicable to a number of different filters, and it really helps to streamline your business in terms of not only keeping you on top of what you need from the clients, but also streamlining the process of getting that request out to the clients. It saves me the hassle of having to go into an email and either copy and paste a template or type out a new request specific to every client. A lot of this documentation requests are specific. From there, once we have an approval in place from a lender, my assistant would go back into the conditions and documents section of the Velocity file and add any additional conditions manually based on specific lender requests. So the lender may request from a T4 from the previous employer to confirm previous employment. We might manually go in and add that or what have you based on the approval details. So this is one of the ways that I utilize Velocity to expedite my day-to-day business and also provide quick service and turnaround for my clients. Generally, in my experience, from hanging up the phone with the clients to sending out the document request for documents and also sending out the e-signature version of the client letter of engagement, the client receives both of those emails usually within about 5 minutes of me hanging up the phone. Because again, as I say, the application is pre-filled. I'm hitting one button, clicking which conditions to send, and then pre-filling a stock text. And then likewise on my e-signature version of my client letter of engagement, I'm simply entering their email address and hitting send. I hope this has provided a little bit of information for you today, maybe a feature that you weren't aware of in Velocity, or ultimately a feature that you were aware of, but hadn't taken the time to figure out how to set up. Certainly, if you have any questions or concerns about setting up these smart conditions or utilizing any of the other aspects of Velocity, I'm happy to chat about this a little further. Don't hesitate to give me a call, shoot me an email. We can set up a Zoom call and screen share to work through it, or I can walk you through it on the phone. But I hope you found something of value in this video and have a great afternoon.